right, hello everyone. How's everyone doing this afternoon? Morning, actually, technically. Thank you, whoever said that. I appreciate that. My name is Melissa Nell, and I work for Manatee County's Parks and Natural Resources Department. And today, I am here to present to you a little program that we started a couple years ago called Preserve Ambassadors. I'm just curious, how many of you in the audience are land managers? You're actually working on a preserve or in a park? Okay, that's fine. That'll wake them up. How many of you are volunteers? How many of you are just here because you thought this would be a fun morning? And lunch is awesome because CHNEP all right, you guys are honest. That's great. Well, for those of you that are land managers, hopefully you can maybe take this program back and do something similar. There's a lot of text on the slides, so hopefully you can maybe learn a little bit. And for those of you that aren't, maybe this will inspire you to do something similar at a place that you volunteer. Just to give you a little bit of background about our volunteer program, it's really awesome. I can't lie, back in 2012 when we started this, we had over 4,000 volunteers participating throughout the year, and they were giving right around 11,000 hours, which sounds fantastic. The gentleman in the picture is Harry Cunningham III, and that's a great picture of our volunteers doing what they did best. They were out in the field, they were pulling exotics. Our volunteers that actually work with Ranger Randy, who's here, he has about 5 or 6 that are there almost every day, serving in the role as kind of assistant rangers. They're amazing. But we found that they were accomplishing so much work, but some of them, if you asked them about the preserve that they were working at, or even some of the other ones outside their bubble of familiarity, they really didn't have as much knowledge as we wanted them to have, and there was a little bit of a disconnect. And in some cases, we even realized that there were some very interesting misconceptions, not just about their site, but about what the department was doing as a whole. So we decided that we would try to come up with a program that would help educate the volunteers. That was our primary goal. And as we started developing this, we sort of just kind of broke out 6 other goals. The first one, of course, was to educate them about the preserves. We have some really famous preserves kind of in Manatee County. If any of you have ever heard of Robinson Preserve, that site has received international attention. And then if you drive about an hour and a half east, we have Duet Preserve. Robinson is right around 600 acres. Duet is 20,000. But whereas Robinson gets about 10,000 visitors in a month during season, Duet may get 10. So our volunteers knew some of these sites really, really well, and we had other ones that they didn't know about. So we felt that if we started educating them a little bit better, that we would be able to help them become advocates for the different preserves, for the restoration that we were doing in Manatee County and the conservation. Historically in Manatee County, the most vocal constituents of the commissioners find that more things happen. So we kind of wanted to sort of quietly empower those volunteers to be able to reach out to their local government too. We wanted to showcase the preserves, and we really wanted to sort of kind of copy the Master Naturalist program a little bit and develop the volunteers' knowledge of habitat and the flora and fauna. The last 2 goals on here were things that we're still working on developing. We really wanted to answer our volunteers' questions. They provide so much work for us, but we're not always as great as we can be about reaching back out to them and answering their questions. And they have a lot, not just about what we're doing, but about the county's role in restoration in Florida as a whole. So we wanted to give them a forum to answer those questions. And then eventually we want to pilot, well, this was the pilot program, we want to expand it to reach the ecotourism providers in Manatee County. So a little bit about the history of the program. We proposed it in the spring of 2013. Whenever we propose a new program, we come up with a proposal for it that's submitted. I'm going to make that available via PDF for Moran. So if anybody wants to take a look at that, it's yours to check out. Yeah, you're welcome. Anything from this, anything you want to see, we can make available. The program itself has 7 classes, and it's set up so that if you want to, you can come to 1 class, you can come to 2, or if you make all 7, you become a grand ambassador. And we'll talk a little bit more about the psychology of that and how well it worked to kind of convince people to come for all 7. The first program, we launched it in June of 2013, and we had about a month and a half to develop the first 2 classes. After that, we would host 2 classes a month, and after hosting the classes, we would develop the next 2 classes. So we did them in tandem so that we could improve upon the future classes from what was happening when we were teaching. We have offered 3 series so far, and when we get enough people that have gone all the way through, our minimum is like 5, we have a big party, because this is a wonderful way to get all of your volunteers together to celebrate one another's successes. So just kind of a little snapshot of the Preserve Ambassadors class. Each of the classes is 2.5 hours, and they all follow a similar format that made it really easy for us as curriculum designers to keep to the same template. And it makes it great for the audience, because when we have those repeat offenders that have decided they're going to go through all 7, they come in and they kind of learn the drill on the first class, and then the subsequent classes, they're really great about helping us out because they're volunteers and they want to help. And now they know the drill, and so they're really great about assisting with that. The class is divided into 4 sections. So in the first section, we have like a little introduction and an icebreaker and a pre-test, which just, when we talk at the end about lessons learned, just so you all know, the word test is the scariest word you can ever say to a volunteer. So now it's an information jamboree. We also have a PowerPoint presentation, which I personally hate, but we discovered that that was really the best way to get the information to our volunteers. And that PowerPoint has everything from the acquisition history of that site, everything from the grants we got to any type of partners that help with us, the history, because it's very important for us, for our volunteers to understand the fact that some of our preserves have been acquired for habitat value, but others have been acquired for cultural reasons. So we want to make sure that we're presenting that information to them. We also talk about any kind of restoration activity, any kind of conservation activities, and also things like recreational amenities. And kind of towards the end, we talk about the habitat, the flora and the fauna that are all there. And we always end each presentation with about a 20-slide, just everybody stops talking and really gets immersed in that site, because we've found that some of the volunteers that are coming to the class have never been to the site before. So rather than myself or Aiden, who also gives the classes, talking about it, we just want to give them time to soak it up. In the activities, these are some photos. I know they're a little small, but I can kind of break it down for you. Every class has different activities. So we wanted to make sure that if people were coming to different classes, they weren't sitting in the back going, oh, I've done this before, this is really boring, I just want to go on and finish these classes. So every single one has something different that's tied into that site. So for instance, like this one right here, that's our Emerson Point class, and in that slide, the volunteers are given different types of plants, and they learn to use a taxonomic key, and we talk a lot about invasives and exotics and how that plays into the restoration that we do with the volunteers and just in general the sites. If you look, a lot of these pictures, the people in them are in groups, and we found that by having the volunteers work together in groups, it works out really well, because then they make connections and it really emphasizes that social aspect. the top picture up here, there's Aiden. He's here today presenting in a minute. And that's our watershed model. That's our Jigs Landing class, and we're able to talk about our partnerships with the NEPs, like Charlotte Harbor, Tampa Bay, and Sarasota. So we tie that in as well. Over here, we have volunteers learning how to build a food chain and tying that into a food web. And I know those of you that are land managers, and probably everyone in the room, because you're all very passionate about the environment, y'all probably know that. To you guys, that's probably like kid stuff. But we've found that many of our volunteers coming through don't have that basic knowledge. So this is a great time to introduce them to basic concepts as well. And then this is my favorite photo, because one of our classes, we go out and collect freshwater macroinvertebrates. And it's really important to us that these activities aren't just things where people are looking at photos. We really want to give them a chance to get up close with the wildlife and the plants. So for this one, we usually go out about an hour or two before the class, get really dirty and muddy, collect some dragonfly nymphs, maybe some toe biters, some water bugs, and teach our volunteers how to key them out and then tie it into the habitat of that site. So the budget for this, I'm just going to go ahead and be totally honest and tell you that when we originally started, there was no budget. We decided to do this pretty much based on the idea that our volunteers are worth it and the cost didn't matter. So all of those of you that work in government like I do that are cringing at that, the reason it worked for us is because the average value of volunteer time is about $23 right now. Well, for us, the cost of this class is under $3 per person. So if you have 25 people in one class, it's like $60. So the return per person is $20 pretty much. And I can argue that because the volunteers coming for 2.5 hours are already donating almost $50 worth of their time. So we have a very small budget in the division that we use to manage this. We try to do everything in-house. In a second, I'm going to talk to you about the cool swag that the volunteers get for participating. We do all of that in-house. And these little circles that you're seeing up here, this one's for Jigs Landing. This one is for our Coastal Gems class. Those are the custom logos for each class. So each of these circles is kind of the logo for the class, and those were all designed in-house too. So whenever we can, we try to do as much as possible in-house to carry it forward. We also try to reuse a lot of things, and we're switching over to an electronic format for all of our notes for the volunteers as well. So we found that swag was really the important way to draw our volunteers in and get them to continue with the series. We asked our volunteers, what do you like best about this? And they said, I get stuff. And then we said, well, what do you like best? And they're like, the buttons. I've actually had volunteers walk in with their buttons, which, you know, every class that they attend, they get a certificate, and then they get a custom button. We bought a button maker. It was the best investment ever. We use it for a lot of different things. And so, for instance, for the Robinson Preserve class, that little logo up there, they get that as a button that they can wear. Our volunteers that work at Robinson Preserve, they wear that very proudly. To show that they have gone through that class and they're knowledgeable about that site. People really do love free stuff. And the return on it is amazing. The number of people that I had come to me saying, listen, all I need is the Emerson Point button. When are you doing the class again? Like, well, we'll set that up for you. For us, it's important because it's drawing them to go and find out about places that they might either not care about because it's not where they work, or maybe they didn't even know. But we found that because folks get something, they're willing to come back. We really do have people kind of seeking out the entire set. And if you think about it, and it may just be because I'm a huge comic geek, and I have been to enough conventions where I've seen lines of people that would stretch past this building waiting for something that they can only get there. But when you have that exclusive thing, people are really proud about it and they're really excited to show it off. So the response and participation, we've had 3 sessions. One of those sessions we weren't able to complete, and we'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about timing. But we've had over 370 volunteers go through, and of those, we had about 18 participants per class. The pre and post tests, information jamborees that we have came in really handy because we were able to show that for a lot of these classes, our volunteers will walk in and get like 1 or 2 questions right, and when they leave, they're getting 100% of the test. It's also really nice for the volunteers because we have a few, and some of you all have probably worked with those folks that know everything. So it's kind of cool to see them gain knowledge too. And the big push with this class is we love it if people do 1 class, but we really want them to do all 7. So from that 379 individuals that have participated, we've had 32 that have gone all the way through. That means they've attended 7 classes that were 2.5 hours each, and they've done the whole program. We've had 2 grand ambassador celebrations. They've been really well attended by county commissioners, which has been great for our department because it's gained us visibility. We've had press there, and the other volunteers come in to celebrate because like the folks that you see in this picture, that was our first batch. Their success became a cause for celebration for everyone else, and they really like to party. So this is a photo of them at their potluck from the last one. A couple of lessons learned really quickly. Make sure you have everything ready to go. We found that the way we did it of writing while teaching was really tough. Be mindful of timing. I mentioned that one of our sessions we didn't really complete, and that was because we were trying to do it at a time when most of our seasonal volunteers were gone, so we just rolled it over into the fall. You have to be willing to answer the tough questions. If you're going to be talking about the restoration policies that your county's doing, you have to be willing to answer them because they'll ask. And you want, like we always update our material, and we'll have some people retake the classes. We've had volunteers that have loved the program and want us to do a class for every single site in Manatee County. We've also had people that haven't liked it, and that's okay too because their feedback helps you improve. We already talked about how important swag is, but if you're going to do a program like this, you have to keep the momentum going. You can't just train these people and be like, we'll see you later. So we do all sorts of different extra emails and different bits of information that we send to them throughout the year to keep them kind of connected to what's going on in the department. And this type of program really is great for PR and social opportunities for your volunteers. So according to my timer, which I fear, I have 2 minutes left. So does anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Have any of your grand ambassadors been promoted to be trainers in these courses?
Not yet, but that is my plan. They just don't know it yet. Initially, when we did this, we thought it would take 1 staff member, and we found out like 2.5 hours is a pretty big chunk of time, and the activities, they're intense. Like it requires a lot of materials that we make up and we reuse. So that's the next plan is finding those people. But what has happened is a lot of them have gone on to volunteer at our nature centers and places like that and become more active in some of our outreach programs. So it's been pretty successful. We've also had them bring their friends. So they've come and said, hey, this was a lot of fun. I'm going to bring my friend. And then they get into volunteering through that. Any more? With all that being said, whenever I do a talk for Moran, I always make everything available. So I'll be sending her a PDF that has the initial proposal, one of the lesson plans for one of the classes, one of the PDF, and then a listing of the activities and everything. So for those of you that are interested, you can also always email me, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.